into Carson Wentz and maybe some guys in the draft. I don't know how much you've looked at that yet. I know you're a big studier and all that. But I am curious, like, what it's like when you were a free agent. What is that process like for a player when you're out there, and whether or not you want to leave your former place or not, but you're having to join a new team? What is that whole process like for a player?
Keim, you know what? That's a great question, because I think people don't understand, because we are always attached to the team that believed in us first, the team that drafted us. I don't know how to say this, but a motherly connection to that team that said, you know what, out of college, I believe in you. And when it comes to that point in my situation, we were still paying Deion Sanders. We were still paying, we were paying guys that weren't even on the roster. So we had a lot of problems under the cap. So it was kind of like my hands was tied, but I would talk with guys, and a lot of guys did not want to leave their initial team. But it was a situation where sometimes you don't know other people value your property more than you do. All right? Some people look at the things you have and say, you know what, we don't have one of those. We want one of those. And I think that's what comes into it. But you're talking about people uprooting their family. You're talking about having to learn a whole nother community. You're talking about having to learn just the way to get to work is a different way to work. And you're talking about a whole different group of people that you got to win over. Like, it's easy for me to come back to Washington because I've already won these people over from my first visit. But to go to Minnesota is a clean slate there. And when you sign these big contracts, they're looking for you to really deliver right now. And I always tell people, you're never going to get the best season out of your free agents the first year. It's going to always be the second, third, and fourth year.
Just because is there a pressure that guys feel because of that?
No, it takes time for them to get used to the locker room, get used to the new field they playing on, get used to a new environment. It's all, get used to what this team wants from me. You've seen us make that big mistake. Bring a guy over here that does something special and we ask him to do something totally different. Right? So it takes the defensive coordinator a year to insert this guy inside of his plan, but also figure out what this guy does well.
So for you go to Minnesota. You're an outgoing guy. And like I always said, like I can always tell when Fred's talking on the other side of the field because I see a bunch of guys laughing. How quick are you able to show that personality when you go to a new place?
I think it's easy for me because I have a natural personality. I don't know how easy it is for other guys that's quiet, because you got to kind of start the conversation with them. Like I said, it's easy for me because the great thing I never did, I always said, no matter how much I achieve, I don't want to lose who Fred Smoot is. You know, if you can stay grounded and stay yourself, that's the big challenge. The big challenge is not to get there and change. The big challenge is to get there, adapt, and still be yourself. But I think on a personal level, it takes these guys weeks, months to get one or two guys that they trust, or one or two friends in that locker room. And that's that transition that people don't talk about. They always talk about the talent, who you bring in the locker room. They never talk about the player, because when I talk about Carson Wentz, I'm not worried about the player. I know he can push the ball down the field. I know he can make every throw. I know he can go out there and do things on the field some guys can't do. Carson Wentz, the person, how is he going to mesh with this locker room? How is he going to be different and learn from his first two stops compared to this one? And I think the one thing we got going for him compared to his first two stops, I think we're going to make him feel wanted. And that's the number one thing with players. I think we're going to make him feel wanted, and that's going to allow him to go out and play some football.
I'm going to get to that in a minute too. Did you feel wanted in Minnesota when you go there? They did come after you, but you also, like you said, you didn't necessarily want to leave here. So did you feel that, and how did they make you feel that way?
I did feel very much wanted. And at that time, Mike Tice really wanted to make a Super Bowl run. And after that offseason, we was picked out of the NFC East with Dante Culpepper at quarterback, and adding Pat Williams, and add him to Kevin Williams, and adding all the guys we had, the sharpest of the world. We was picked to go to the Super Bowl. So on paper, it was a very, very good educational decision. But until I got there, and I was like, I love this place. It's a great place. I miss DC.
Hmm.
I miss DC. Like that was always in the back of my head. And like they say, the grass is not always green on the other side, because then I realized it's something more important than money, and that's your happiness. Like they could never get to fully happy Fred Smoot because I was still wanting to and yearning to be back here. Like you usually get the best out of players when they're happy, when they love their offseason, like when they love the neighborhoods they live around, the neighborhoods they're a part of, and you get the best out of these players. And I can say this, I enjoyed my time there. But as you see, it's football over with, I'm still a part of this community.
Well, it's funny because one of the things, because so many guys came here as free agents over the years, that when you would talk to them, it felt like they identified with the first team they were with. And when you have a lot of guys like that, what happens when you have a lot of those free agents? What happens to the camaraderie on a roster?
Good, you know what, Keim? Because I think I gave off a little of that when I was in Minnesota. I gave off my first stop. It was a little bit better than this. I never forget the first time we had to travel for a preseason game. I'm used to how we do stuff here. And Keim, they gave me a ticket the day of practice. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with this ticket? And we literally had to drive ourselves to the airport, park and walk through the airport, just totally normal, walk up to the gate and just really check in. Like that was so new to me. And I could not stop saying, no, we usually bus up to the bus and get off of the bus and ride onto the plane and do stuff in such a top-notch way. But you got to realize at that time, it was going from the transition from Red McCombs to Ziggy Wilf. So
Right.
Ziggy Wilf was learning how to get things done and how to be on that level. So everything was top-notch here compared to them trying to find their way. So I'm sure they heard me nag a couple of times, like, nah, we didn't do this like this. We did it a better way. And man, I wish I was still there. Like, yeah, you're right. And it can rub the guys that been there the wrong way. It really can.
And it's funny because I was thinking about that too, that there is you brought it up right away about there's more of an affection for the team that drafted you versus when you go to another team. Like when you come in, you're coming in with a bunch of several other players, that are in the same draft class. So you feel like you're a freshman class in a high school or something like that. Whereas opposed to free agency, you don't go in there with that kind of a bond with anybody, I'm assuming.
Well, it's more like your high school love, right? Your high school love loved you before anybody. When you was dreaming, saying, you know what, I'm going to go play football. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this a try. She was right there with you while you're maturing, she maturing. And right when you got to the league, here come this other lady, and she's the free agent. And now that you all glossed up and you look good, she wants to rip you from her. So it has that connotation to it. And it is similar to maternal connection to that team, because that you will never forget the day you're drafted. You will never forget that day. That's a dream come true. And you remember that call. I remember that call with Dan. I remember that call with Marty Schottenheimer. I will never forget that. I got my mom on my right, my grandmama on my left. I will never forget that. And the Washington football team will always be connected to that. And no other team could take that. I could have went to the Patriots and won a ring. They cannot replace that.
Listen, my high school girlfriends laughed when I told them that dream, so we had a different experience.
But look at you now, Keim. They wish they could go free agency now.
Hey, listen, this is a true story. So I told my chemistry professor, I said, I'm going to Ohio State for football. He said, you're not good enough to play there. I said, I didn't say I was going there to play. So I just wanted to go watch Ohio State football. So
I either be a coach, your knowledge of the game. Like that's why I tell people, when people say I'm going to be a part of sports, it's a million ways to get it done. You don't always have to be a player.
Well, that's why I want to do this. I figured it's either going into, once I decide, I'm like, I'm not going to make it in baseball. And I know my days in football are ending right here. Then it was like either this, some level of coaching or public relations. And so just, or broadcasting, just to stay involved in this. And listen, I get paid to talk to you. I mean, that's not a bad gig.
Hey, listen, Keim, I've got paid all my life to play a glorified children's game. All right. So people play to watch me play, never worked a day in my life. Then afterwards, I get paid to talk about said game again. It's a dream come true. I always tell people, they're like, what's your dream job? I'm living my dream job. I've always lived my dream job. And a dream job is something that you would do without pay. Like I do it without pay. I love the draft. I love the new players. I love the new generation of players. I love the fact that no matter how long you was in the league, you're a part of that fraternity.
Just imagine if you weren't so shy too.
Imagine what I could get coming out of college. Out of high school right now. Imagine my NIL. Imagine how that looks.
What would you want to do? Like if you were doing an NIL, what would be the NIL that would suit you best?
Well, don't forget, I did come out with my website at the infancy of the internet boom. I came out with smootsmack.com.
That's right.
Where I used to talk trash and receive trash talk back to me from SEC's players and stuff like that. It's Twitter now. That's the same. I had the Twitter format. I had it, Keim. I had it.
It was right there for you.
It was right there for me. So I would have most definitely connected to the tech world. I would have most definitely connected to any brand in Mississippi, because I probably would have still stayed in Mississippi State. And I would have connected to any brand, John Deere. You probably would see me riding a tractor with Brett Favre, wearing Wrangler drink, anything. But that's why I got to be so fun now for a college student, because now it's more than just going to that school. It's a job.
Well, I also wonder how the NILs are going to impact like the guy's decision to go pro or not go pro, because now you can, because you know this, like if you're a struggling college kid and your family's struggling, like I know I'm only going to be a third or fourth round pick, but that's a lot of money. Or I could make $1 million on an NIL, stay here and maybe improve my stock for the next year. It's got to impact a kid.
I was just talking to Sean Springs about it. I was like, what happens when they say, you know what, a guy like Caleb Williams, you're a quarterback, big position. We want to sign you to a 4-year deal for $10 million. Right? Guaranteed that you stay your senior year. All right. I think that's when they start to dictate terms in that manner, that'll guarantee them the 3rd, the 4th year of these guys. Because guess what? Like you said, I'm not in a rush to get that money. Right. My window is not closing as quick. And then you got a lot of these guys. Think about if you're a quarterback this year and you're sitting at home and you're watching what they call a weak quarterback draft, but I think this is where you find the diamonds in the rough at. But you're sitting there and you say, you know what? I could have came out this year. A lot of them guys say, you know what? I'm making $1 million. I'm fine. I'm not rushing out of here. I'm cool.
And yeah, part of my phone ringing there real quick there. But, you know, the other thing I wonder too, speaking of quarterbacks, if you're a quarterback in college and like, you know, and maybe you stay another year. If you have a really good junior year, maybe you stay another year to get 12 more starts to again. Now, again, if you're going in the top 10, you're probably going to go if you think that, but maybe.
But not automatically no more, Keim. Not automatically no more, because the money was the motivation. But now you're getting the money in a comfortable setting. How many kids are going to pull Andrew Luck and say, you know what, I'm coming back. You know what, we got a dynasty at Alabama. I want to try to win 3 in a row. I'm at Miami and we just woke this thing back up and I want to start. Like these kids can actually say, you know what, I ain't no rush to this money because I got money. I got money right now. My family is living better. I'm living better. And maybe this ain't the draft for me to come out. How many guys have you seen say, you know what, I'm really only throwing my head in this draft because I need to help take care of my family. Like feeling that pressure.
Yeah. And like, I mean, a lot of people have been struggling college students and you know, I mean, I would love to have been able to go pro early in whatever thing to, you know, to help out my mom, right? You know, because you see somebody struggling, so you want to help out and that's a way to do it. And now you can do that before. So the money and the stuff gives you power and the freedom, which goes back to like the quarterbacks in the NFL right now. All these guys changing teams, but it almost feels like when you can make that kind of money, it buys you hey, I don't have to do what you want because I'm making this money. It's going to give me freedom to try and force the choice that I want.
Well, right now the NFL is actually the ceiling is caving in on them with their own rules. The salary cap was brought here to make a competitive, equal base playing field. All right, when they say, all right, how can we manipulate the cap? Something that was a cardinal sin 15 years ago. We gonna guarantee the contracts because now they don't count against the cap. Right. So every team says, you know what, the Rams formula, find 5 key guys on the team that you know gonna play majority of the games and gonna be who they are and guarantee them their contract. This allows us to be around other guys. And I think that's going to be the new formula. And that's why we're seeing this big push on quarterback. Like right now, if you're a fan base and your team is not doing what the AFC West teams are doing, you see them going all out. How do you feel right now? How do you feel as a fan base when you see that happening in one division?
Well, how would you like to be a quarterback right now in the NFC, looking at the quarterbacks here compared to the AFC?
And that's why Tom Brady said, you know what? He looked to the right and said, these kids are better than I thought. The AFC or the NFC is better than I thought. I'm going back to work.
Right. And so this leads on to the Carson Wentz. What did you think of that deal?
I thought we got a lot of quarterback for what we gave up. All right. So we won that. Excuse me. We won that part of the deal. Now, like I asked you in the beginning, am I worried about Carson Wentz, the player? No. For one, he's really eager to prove that he can get back to what he was or better. He's been humbled by the NFL. Their process of humbling you alone. Not worried about the player. Terry McLaurin is probably going to be the best wide receiver he played with in the last 6 years. All right. Not worried about the player. I'm worried about the person. All right. We've heard rumblings about Philadelphia about the locker room, which if I had to come to work every day and see a statue of Nick Foles, my backup, every day I walk through, I might be a little salty too. All right. But then you hear about the coach. So I think what he needs to do is look in the mirror and say, what am I doing to either rub my teammates the wrong way or what I'm not doing to endear to them?
Right.
Because, you know, just like you go in off season and try to adjust your football game, you got to adjust your mental too. All right. And it ain't his football game that's getting into the way, it's the mental. So, like I said, it's all about the person with Wentz. Who are we getting? But I think he knows this is his chance. It might be his last chance to show people he's beyond a starter in this league. He's a Pro Bowler. But right now, we have the second best quarterback in the NFC East.
Well,
right?
that's
now.
I mean, I don't. That's not a stretch to say that at all.
No, we have the second best quarterback in the NFC East with a team that won 7 games with Taylor Heineke last year. You can't tell me Wentz ain't worth +2, +3 wins. All right, you can't tell me bringing back Chase Young, a healthy Chase Young that's eager to prove people, to bring back a group of people on the offensive side that's more explosive than people give him props for. Yes, did we lose Sheriff? Yes, we did. But I think we won that deal also, holding out, saying, you know what? We're not going to give you what you think you're worth. We're going to bear what the market tells us you are in our building. And that's what it's all about. So I give kudos to the front office for not playing hardball, just legitimately saying we're not going to overpay you because they say this is what the market should pay you.
You talk about humility and being humbled and all that. Can you tell when a guy's been humbled into the locker room? Like, you know, and what do you like? Yeah. Can you tell?
We can always tell because we all go through it at some point. I don't care if it's the intro to the league, it's in the middle of your career. You always get humbled. And it's this thing where you're dealing with 53 alpha males, Keim. And this melting pot, everybody's trying, even though they never say it, it's a grind, eat, grind situation. How many people work with people, friends with people, that they actually have to sit down and compete with 6 days a week, then turn around and band together like brothers on Sundays to take on somebody else to try to keep our jobs. So I got to keep you from keeping my job during the week, my teammate. And then we go to war with other people on the weekends. So it's like, it's a respect level there. And we can see when somebody morale gets up or gets down, or they're starting to be challenged by the NFL, like Baker Mayfield right now. He's starting to be challenged by the NFL, not because he didn't play well last year, because he played well the year before that, because of his intro to the league. He came in with this, I'm Baker, I can do stuff the way I want to. I'm going to have more commercials and playoff wins. I'm going to do that. So when the NFL starts to humble you in that way, it'll show you for every year that you think you're great, it's 500 youngsters want your job. And they coming, and they youthful, and they cheaper versions of you with a clean slate. And I think that humbles you also. It ain't like Dale Green told me, it ain't how many years you play, it's how many drafts you last. How many times could you negate the draft? I mean, they continue to draft your replacement, and he continues never to play.
Daryl went through that a lot because he always said that they draft all these corners with you or, you know, I think it was Scott Turner and bunch of
Yeah.
guys like that. And it's like, he's like, yeah, he always viewed it is that my replacement? I'm not going to let him be. With Carson too, the big arm. And
Yeah.
how does that help Terry? And does it make him more dangerous for a corner to defend him? Like, what happens to Terry just because you now have a big arm quarterback throwing to you?
I can promise you this. We'll do the numbers at the end of the year, Keim. His comeback routes and his digs routes will go up by 20%. Mark my word. His comeback and his dig routes become the most potent routes he got. Because guess what? As a cornerback, I'm thinking, this is when Terry and Carson finna try to go on top with me. This is when they finna go on top with me. Nope, comeback. Nope, dig route. And when they do this to you, that's when they start to play their game with you, because I know if it's an option. When Heineke was playing, I'm going to play so close to Terry that he's going to have to show me he can beat me over top. All right, because I know I can run under Heineke's arm. I don't know if I can run under all Wentz's balls. And there go the challenge for me as a cornerback over there. And there go where it opens up Terry to actually be better at the short routes in the mid-range routes. He's going to dominate people on that. So if you add that to a guy that averages 79, 80 yards per game, then he goes into the 105, 110 a game, because now yards after catch, he's one of the better guys in the NFL. Right now, he's the number one wide receiver in the NFC East. So we have the number two quarterback in the NFC East and the number one wide receiver in the NFC East. I think you can make some plays with that, especially with arguably the number two back in the NFC East. You want to say that?
Yeah. Why not?
All right.
I mean, he looked good at the end, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked good. He's been more consistent. Zeke, that's a bad contract. He haven't been healthy. Tony Pollard, yes, he showed he could be a number two back, a 1.5 back. Haven't proved he could be the number one guy. Saquon is his own worst enemy with his health. All right, and Miles Sanders goes through the same thing. I don't know if it's a Penn State thing, but we done dealt with Penn State running backs and health problems before. Yeah. But when I look at the NFC East, I see a Dallas Cowboy team that arrow is going down with all the people they're losing and the people they're going to have to step up. I see the Giants, actually, the arrow is pointing up on the Giants. That'll be a team to watch out for. And we know with Philadelphia, with these first-round draft picks they got, they got a chance to rewrite their whole roster. And don't forget, they was a playoff team last year with a quarterback that they bringing back. So the NFC least, that's what they've been calling us, might not be the least anymore.
And that'll be interesting to watch. Does Washington do they need to add another skill guy, another receiver, or do you like with Diami and Curtis and Cam?
Oh, you know what? You know how you buy a sports car in the wintertime? You buy a Ferrari in the wintertime. You never get to drive.
I don't know what that's like, but keep going. Keep going.
So you buy the sports car.
Let's change it to a Toyota Camry.
Yeah, and the weather won't allow you to drive your Jeep. All right, say you got a Jeep. It won't allow you to drive it. Well, that's what we got in Curtis Samuels. We got a car we've never drove in before. We don't know what we have in Curtis Samuels. I think we got a guy that you can bring him out, bring out the regular formation, and you don't know if our running back is a wide receiver, if our receiver is a running back. All right, that can cause problems. That makes defense automatically have to check the zone. No matter what happens, they got to check to zone if Scott Turner can really mix that up. But if I'm bringing any wide receiver here, and I'm going to tell you now, Cam Sims re-signing was bigger than most people think it is. Cam Sims is one of them guys, he can ball out as much as you give him a chance to. They just really haven't gave him a fluid chance. And when he had that one fluid chance, he got hurt. He got hurt. But him coming back, but if I'm going to bring in a wide receiver, I'm going to bring in a big guy. I'm going to bring in another big guy like Cam Sims that can catch bad balls. That's what big wide receivers do. Big catch ratings, meaning that the quarterback can throw it all over the place and they will come down with it. That's what I do if I'm talking about bringing somebody on the offense right now.
Have you looked much at the corners in this draft?
Oh, I love these corners in this draft. Some of the best corners to come out in when I say a long time. All right, if I told you, Keim, I had the equivalent of a faster version of Richard Sherman and Jack Tatum. I told you I had that.
All right.
I got that in sauce.
Like
that's
him.
who he is. A faster version of that guy. And if I told you I had a combination of a guy I call Champ Woodson He's mixed with Champ Bailey and Charles Woodson. That'll be Derek Stingley, the junior. I think he is special. Remember this, Keim. It was a national championship team a couple years ago that I think when I watched them play, I said, this is the best college football team I ever seen in my life. And I seen that Miami team with Ed Reed and all of those guys on them. That was a very good team. But I watched Derek Stingley go one-on-one with Jamar Chase every day at practice. I'm like, guys would send me stuff. And at times, he was the best player on that team. He was a freshman. Like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase just played in the Super Bowl. Nobody in the NFL, not even Jalen Ramsey, one of my favorites, was able to keep up with Jamar Chase. Well, guess what? We got a guy that's going to guarantee to fall to us at 11. He's guaranteed to be there. I don't see you picking anybody else other than this guy. If you don't pick Derek Stingley Jr. at 11, it will be the biggest mistake the Washington franchise has made since the day we traded Champ Bailey. It will be the biggest mistake we made.
Are you're so, there's been a lot of talk. He had the injuries, he had some inconsistent play. Does any of that bother you?
None of that bothers me. None. We seen this when Cromartie came out. I remember when San Diego and Martin Schottenheimer took a ride on him. He had just tore his ACL. And he was like, yeah, but I can't buy 6'2" and a half, that length, that ball skills, that speed. What about him missing the first 3 months? I don't care about the first 3 months when I got him for the next 11 years. All right. So at the end of the day, are you looking at the big picture? Or are you looking at the fact that every time you overthink the draft, we draft wrong? Every time you overthink these things. Well, I want to do two things. I want to watch you play football, and I want to see who you're playing against. All right. Well, guess what? I just watched an NFL be burnt by Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. All right. Well, I got to go get an answer for that. All right. I don't know if Sauce can handle it, and I love Sauce. All right. But I know who can handle it. I know who's dealt with it. And that's Derek Stingley Jr. I think he's generational. I really do think he's generational at the cornerback. And there's a lot of guys in this draft that I think gonna be pros for a long time, especially with these offensive tackles. Some of these guys gonna be hard not to draft. I totally understand. This wide receiver group, I think it's a very deep wide receiver group. And I'm sorry, from 1 to 15, the separation's not that much.
No, you're right.
You know what? You say Chris Olave, I say Jameson Williams. What's the difference?
No,
very fluent.
Yeah, I think your thought, and I think that's why, like, as much as I say I would like to see them add another receiver, you do not have to do that at 11. And like so if Stingley you think is special, you're taking the special guy. I don't care if you have William Jackson and Kendall Fuller there. You you can win with special guys.
Yeah, yes, you can. And you got to realize now, think about it. I love Kendall Fuller. Great person, great guy.
So do I.
I like Dollar Bill Williams. I told you, you get the best. I think you get the best play out of your free agency second, third year. This is going to be his second year. If I draft Derek Stingley next week, he's automatically the number one corner. Like, even though we got a top free agent corner over there, that tells you his presence. That tells you who he is. When he stepped in there, he's most definitely the best athlete at the corner. He has the best technique at the corner. He's legitimately the best. You know what? I take that back. He's the best defensive back on the team the day he's drafted.
Well, what is it with when you see a technique? Like, what? Give me something that you see that the average person isn't going to see when you're watching Stingley that really stands out to you.
You gonna know this one. You know how I used to watch Champ when it was me and Champ playing? And Champ would never look distressed. Champ would never be out of position.
Right.
And Champ would never look like he's working hard. Like, never look like he's working hard. Like, no matter how hard the receiver is digging, how much, like, he's coasting along. And that ease. Like, when you find the 1% of the 1% who just methodically does their job, it's something different about these guys. All right. And therefore, and what I really like is when these guys didn't get their just desserts in college, meaning they got their props, but they didn't live up to what they thought they're gonna be in college. That means they're gonna live up in the pros. They're gonna live up to that title. His technique, and when I say technique, is no wasted steps. At the cornerback, if you waste a step, it will be counted against you. A wasted step will let the wide receiver get on top of you or inside of you. He never wastes steps. He never works hard, meaning wait till he really gets to the position where they teaching him some pro technique to where he sure ain't got to go work hard. He don't work hard. He don't have to work hard also because his eyes are always disciplined and he depends on his technique, even though he's a 4-3 guy. Even though he's a 4-3 guy, he never gets to the top end of that 4-3 because he's never in a bad position. Carlos Rogers was always good at that. Los probably couldn't see the ball all the time because he couldn't see, but he was never in a bad position. Never.
Well, he wasn't. He was in a position to miss a lot of interceptions. That's what he was. I like Carlos, man. Carlos was like, I like Carlos.
I told people when he was here, he's nearsighted. Nobody wants to listen to Fred Smoot because I'm a talker. Right? I'm like, have y'all not wonder why the ball hits him in the helmet? He's literally right there by the man, but the ball hits him. He goes to the 49ers, gets LASIK surgery, goes to the Super Bowl and the Pro Bowl. All right, that tells you what guy he was.
Yeah, no, and he was. I agree with you. He was always in good position. He really was. Last thing, Fred, and this is way off the beaten path, but I was talking about this in the last podcast. That fake security guard in the lobby at the facility. Did that ever fool you?
He is so creepy. All right, check this out. The first time I came up to him, I started talking to him. They had him right by the studio, and we had just started to test in the studio. Started to record in the studio. So I walk up, and I'm like, "Hey, is anybody else in the studio?" And I'm just looking around because I'm like, I ain't just look at it. And he's quiet, he's not saying it. I'm like, "Hey, anybody in the studio?" And Miss BJ was there at the time. She was like, "Who are you talking to, baby?" And I was like, "I'm talking to the security guard." She's like, "That's not a real person." Like, he's so realistic. You had to literally go into the park, the commander's headquarters, to really see that this person is not really a real person. Like, I'm sorry, it scares me sometimes. He's nightmarish. He's Chucky-like. He's very Chucky-like.
I still get, I get a kick out of him every time I see him because it's like, I know he's not real, and I still look at him like he still looks real. Even though he's not real, you still think, well, maybe he is. Just go pinch him or something.
Hey, listen, like I said, he gives me nightmares. He's the Reaper. We tell you stories about the Reaper. Like every coach hires a guy that the only time we see him is when people getting fired.
Right.
Like, they should just put the cutlass in his hand and let people just walk past him and see what's going on.
Well, how often do you see guys get fooled by him?
The players never. Anytime we have guests in, if we have guests that's going to be on a TV show, let's say it's a player that was a part of the team and doing the little media like Chris Baker and don't be over there a lot. Like, it'll really fool them, or you'll see them interacting with it, and then I just start laughing and stuff like that. So yeah, you're right. It's something about that thing.
That's fantastic. Are you optimistic about this team right now? Then after the first couple weeks of free agency,
I'm very optimistic, and I'm very profound with their patience. The only time I think I seen them hurry is when all the big chess moves start to happen and the quarterback start to dissipate. I seen them really say, you know what, we got to make a move, and we got to make one now. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the restraint from not overpaying a guy just because he says, you know what, I'm worth this. But we also know your dirty secret. We know you haven't played a full season in 4 years. We also know that you're 30 years old. We know these things. So I like that, and the fact that they're now. I had to ask you, we got the quarterback on defense. Offense, Keim. We got to get the quarterback on offense. On defense. We got to get him in linebacker.
Right. And this is a good draft for linebackers too. And so at 11, you got that Devin Lloyd guy. But my problem, I can say the hard part, right. I know what you're saying. I think round two, you could get a guy there as well. My hard part with it is one of the things they talk about, like when Bostic was out there with them, another veteran with Jamin, how much that was a help to Jamin. So can a rookie come in and do that? But I do know there are some guys there who are very intriguing after the first round. But I'm taking a special guy at 11. So if it's your guy, Derek, go with him and don't look back.
You got to, because when you talk about
Devin Lloyd might be there as well. And but
when you talk about him and Chad Muma, the Wyoming guy, they're not too far apart.
Right.
Clark, the linebacker from LSU, they're not that far apart. Like it's just the difference is one gonna go be a safer draft in the first round, and the other one going in the third.
Right.
There's not much difference in those guys. But I'm sorry, I didn't get the quarterback from the Seattle Seahawks on offense, but I can get their defensive quarterback.
I would love him. I've loved that. I've always liked him. I think the question there is, I think you wait till the money comes down a little bit, because I think that's why he's still out there. But I'm with you. Like that would be the guy I would love to have for this defense. I think you get a middle linebacker like that with this defense, you're taking another step.
No, now you're not taking another step. Now you go into full domination. You get him in a London Fletcher-esque way. When we got London from Buffalo, people thought maybe he was coming up to the end of his career. Hell, it was just the beginning.
It was just beginning, yeah.
it was just the beginning. But he also he calmed us down on defense, where we would be sporadic. We wasn't sporadic no more. When you bring a guy like Bobby in here, it matches. Like he comes in here with Super Bowl credentials. Now Chase has somebody to look up to. I told you, if Chase Young is the leader of your team ain't going far. You can't put that on a second-year player. Right? Now, when this guy comes in here, now these guys say, I got a long way to go, and they got somebody to set the tempo and the tone. He changes the defense, and I can't do that with a rookie. I can't do that with a young guy. And if I'm a coach on my third year, if I'm coaching Barry, I ain't got that time. I don't have that luxury. I got to get a veteran in here, like I got a veteran on offense, and now we can go get in the tournament. Once you get in the playoffs, what Cincinnati showed you, hey, all you need to do is get hot for a couple of games, and we can be there for Super Bowl Sunday. All right, and getting a guy like that changes everything.
Fred Smoot, GM, Washington Commanders. There we go.
Oh, Commanders. All right. Hey, have you came up with your nickname for the Commanders? Your jingle?
No, because like the only one people keep talking about is the Commies, and like you can't really go there.
You can't do it. Well, I had we got a little group. We call ourselves the Mandalorians. All right, and that's after the Mandalorian show. Yes, and all we say is, anytime somebody asks me, do I like the name? Now all I say is, this is the way. This is the way.
There you go. There you go. You're the best, man. Thanks a lot, Fred.
Anytime, guys.
Hey, everybody, it's John Keim. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, and I'll continue to bring you guests who provide excellent insight into the Washington Commanders. And while you're here, check out the other terrific content on the Ampire Media Network, including Inside the Cap with Joel Corey and All's Caps with Steve Wino and former Washington Capital Carl Alsner. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Thank you.